spent 2 days and nights sailing from Virgin Gorda and the British Virgin Islands to Montserrat, bypassing quite a few popular stops on the way in favor of putting some miles behind us. Montserrat has quite a history, and even when viewed from far out to sea, it's pretty obvious what that history entails. Surrounded by smoke and more or less active since 1995, the Soufriere Hills volcano is the main tourist attraction on the island. The southern portion of the island and the town of Plymouth were evacuated after the eruption and remain covered in ash. The settlements near the volcano are off limits, but there are still some areas you can access to look over the destroyed city and even enter some of the buildings. We felt a little creepy poking around and taking pictures of the abandoned hotel and church, but we figured, and hoped, it would be the only time we would ever see the aftermath of a volcanic eruption up close and personal. So up close, in fact, that we knew it was time to leave when our eyes started burning from the ash in the air and it became a little hard to breathe. We promptly returned to the boat, not wanting to contract pneumono-ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis.
Guadeloupe turned out to be one of our favorite islands so far. The town of Dehe seems like the perfect combination of a quaint little French village and a picturesque tropical setting. We loved waking up to the church bells in the morning and stocked up on delicious French bread, wine, cheese, and pastries. There was also a great botanic garden just up the hill from town. The collection of tropical plants set among streams and waterfalls was wonderful, but the birds were probably the highlight here. Before moving down to Pigeon Island, where we did some of our best snorkeling, we took a walk up the Dehe River. Unfortunately, we got tired and turned back before reaching the waterfall, but we were looking forward to spending some more time in Guadeloupe on our way back north, so maybe we'll find it next time.
Here we are at the Pigeon Island anchorage in Guadeloupe. We just arrived and dropped our anchor. There's Pigeon Island out there. There's Ashley. So we're going to go jump in and take a look at the anchor and make sure it's set properly.
along the coast of Guadeloupe, and all day today it's been super gusty, so sometimes we'll be going along at about, well, the wind will be blowing like 4 knots, or not blowing at all, basically. And then it went up to about 26 knots earlier. But now that we're sort of rounding the south side of the island, it's starting to kind of mellow out. Hopefully we've had the last of the gusts down the mountain.
So we just cleared out of Guadeloupe. We checked out from the Saints, and now we're on our way to Dominica. There's Ashley. She's on watch right now, or sleeping. And there are the Saints, where we just left. You can see Guadeloupe a little bit in the background. And we're about 20 nautical miles away from Dominica, which I don't know if you can see it, but it's up there in the haze. Yeah, you can see it's nice, smooth, calm seas today. And we're just going along in 11 knots of wind, about 5 knots. So nice, comfortable sailing. And we should be there in a few hours.
We wanted to see as much of the island known for its beautiful rainforest trails as we could, so we ended up spending 2 weeks in Dominica. While hiking along one of the trails described in our guidebook, we climbed up and then down some of the steepest mountainsides I've ever traversed, and I was sure we must have taken a wrong turn. With nothing to go by other than our tourist map of the island, we continued on, following the trails we deemed most likely to lead us back towards civilization, enjoying the rain and cool breeze, thinking of ourselves as adventurers off the beaten path. When we got home that evening and reread the directions in the guidebook, we realized we had been on the right path all along, and learned that when the guidebook describes a vigorous hike, we can actually expect a vigorous hike. Next, we gave in to the almost mandatory guided island tour out of Portsmouth, when enough of our cruising neighbors signed up to bring the price down to a level we could justify spending. The itinerary seemed a little ambitious for a day-long tour, but being able to see so much convinced us that we couldn't afford not to do it. We might have driven too hard a bargain because our packed van was brought to an abrupt and smoky final stop about halfway through, and we ended up walking a bit more than expected and seeing half as much as promised. But preferring our outings to be more on the misadventure side anyway, we had a great time and enjoyed meeting some new friends. The next day, we spent the afternoon being paddled down the Indian River by our joke-filled guide, James Bond, and were then treated to an impromptu fruit tasting party at a nearby orchard, with rum, of course. So despite the breakdown, all in all, we felt we had gotten a pretty good deal on our island tour. Nevertheless, we spent the rest of our time on the island exploring in our typical style, on our own, one $1 bus ride at a time.
Our anchor light had started flashing on and off, so I decided to climb up the mast and take a look. Instead of fixing the loose connection, I managed to drop the wires down inside the mast out of reach. So there's one more project to add to the list of things to fix while we're in Grenada. At least I got a nice view of the anchorage in Portsmouth before leaving for Martinique.